Hey y'all, welcome back to Movement Link. So I want to take a few minutes here and talk about linking clean and jerks together, either when we've got sub-maximal loads and we're doing power clean push jerks, or if we're in the middle of a workout, again with sub-maximal loads, and we're just trying to look to go a little quicker. So a couple things to keep in mind is that the techniques we might use to move the heaviest possible weight possible are not the exact same techniques we might use if we're trying to move lighter loads more over time. We're going to have a ton of similarities between these two, but they're not going to be the exact same. So let's first take a little bit of a look at if I was going to do the max weight I could do in a power clean and push jerk. Let's talk about some of the things that might happen here. So I'm just going to demo this from the hang position here, my jumping position. But in my catch, I'm going to catch in a squatty position, so my feet are wider, and for me, my pinkies come off of the bar. So if I'm going to now jerk, I'm going to have to come up out of this, and I'm going to have to reposition my feet and re-grip the bar to get ready for my jerk. So now I'm ready for my jerk. I'm going to dip back down, drive it up, and I'm back in that squat stance with the bar overhead, so I can stand it up. So if we are at a sub-maximal load, it doesn't make sense to take all of these extra things that are going to give me minor things that matter up in the top end ranges, but don't quite matter as much earlier on. It might be more beneficial to save the energy of having to hold the bar and save time and just go a little bit faster. So to do that, I'm just going to kind of prioritize the most difficult mobility position in the lift, which is going to be that catch and the catch overhead. Okay, so if I was going to prioritize power, I would just keep my feet in that jumping position and I would stay there here and stay there here. But for most people, we want to prioritize that overhead position. So for that reason, keeping your feet in that squat position is probably going to be the best way to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to let my pinkies go on the catch. I'm going to keep them, and I'm just going to use my catch position here as my dip and drive. So I'm just going to try and get rid of that extra up and down movement. So a good way to practice this is just to pause on each one like I'm going to do here. Okay, so we're going to start in the hang position. I'm going to jump it up. I'm catching in that partial squat, keeping my pinkies on the bar, driving it up, catching in the partial squat, and then I'm going to stand up with it. So then just at regular speed, what it's going to look like is I'm just going to use the catch position to be the bottom of my jerk dip position. And I know this sounds obvious, and I know most of you know it. So now we get into the technique layering aspect of this. And we want to use our warm-ups to not only warm up for what we're doing, but to develop skill and movement patterns that we're going to use in the workout, that we're going to use out in the real world and these things. So what happens is most people know that it's going to be more efficient to kind of get in this fluid thing, but they never practice it. And they put weight on the bar, now they're in the middle of the workout, and we see it all the time. They catch, they stand up, they come back down, and they just haven't practiced the skill of linking these things together. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in that technique layering, and in warm up, just like I did before, we're going to add in pauses in each of these positions, and then we're going to slowly work it away. You can do this in sets of like 3 to 5. You can do as many sets as you want of them, but just what it's going to look like is you're going to start just like I did before. We can do this and we can work up in weight with the pauses. You can do one with pauses, one without the pauses, then add weight, one with pauses, one without the pauses. So we can go from the ground and we're just going to come up, pause, make sure we're in that catch position. We're going to drive it up, pause, make sure we're in the receiving position here, same thing, stand up with it. And we can do a couple reps like that. So coming up, adding in that pause, adding in that pause, standing up. Once we get a few reps, now we can go into our next set where we're going to get rid of the pauses. And then we can start developing that efficiency. So, thing to keep in mind here is a couple things. The way we might lift for a max and just like the way we might lift if our only goal was competing in snatch, clean and jerk. These are very different things than using the snatch and clean and jerk for metabolic conditioning, for functional exercises and movement and learning different skills. So techniques might be a little bit different depending on what your goals are. So there's a lot of online arguments about lighter weight, high rep, clean and jerks messing with your technique, and that's absolutely right. If you were an Olympic weightlifter on the Olympic level, probably doing a bunch of clean and jerks where we're using different techniques and the goal is kind of strength, power, speed, and metabolic conditioning is probably not in the wheelhouse of what they're training for. For us, it fits so great into it. And then the other piece is just the warm-up technique layering. And a great way, you can see I'm out of breath, I haven't even done that many reps. And a great way to warm up for these exercises is to include them in your warm-up. And I always like to stop in pauses because not only are we gonna get the actual rhythm of this movement down, but we're gonna be able to check in. And am I catching on my toes? Is my stance weird? Am I losing my fingers? And we can make these corrections as we go with the pauses, and then when we take the pauses away, we're just dialed in, dialed in, dialed in. So be smart, use your warm-ups to develop those skills, pay attention, and then also always pay attention to why you're doing it, okay? And we don't need to necessarily use the exact same techniques for one rep max that we would something at 50% of a max. These might be very, very different techniques. Hope that helps. Talk to y'all soon.